It's gonna get a little weird, gonna get a little wild. It's once again time to talk about Star vs. the Forces of Evil. I've already talked about the show twice, first analyzing main villain Toffee, and later theorizing about what might happen in-universe after the events of the finale. In the latter video, I briefly discussed a couple of unanswered questions the show had. There are plenty more of those to be found, so today I'll be tying up these loose ends to the best of my ability, as well as simply theorizing about a couple of mysterious things in the show that were never really addressed. The writers may have had some sort of plan when they wrote these things. Remember, it's always important to have a plan even when said plan requires someone else completing it. There are pre-existing fan theories and explanations for all of these, so it's about time I got around to it and provided my take. Without further ado, let's begin.
Oh, hello, little boy. Oh, yum yum yum.
Muni, Muni, Muni. Whenever a show introduces a fictional world like this, it's always important to do proper world building. However, many times fictional universes aren't always consistent with their details. Early installment weirdness is a very common trope found in countless movies, books, shows, etc., and Star vs. is no exception. There are several things in the first season which seem weird when you go back to them after watching the whole series. The most obvious one is the animation, but that's not the focus here. Instead, I want to talk about plot and story elements. The way Muni is portrayed in the first season seems a little weird compared to the rest of the series. We see that while Star and her family live in a fancy castle, the average citizens live in abject poverty, are visibly disease-ridden, and appear to be eating roadkill they found on the streets. This doesn't really match up with what we see in later episodes. Okay, I suppose it's possible that this is just a really poor area of Muni, but there are other examples of this sort of thing. In Sleep Spells, Marco tries to do a psychological evaluation on Star to see why she's sleepwalking, and she says that there's something like that on Muni. Said thing happens to be placing people in a catapult and then letting them fly. I know it's mostly for a quick joke, but it's kinda horrifying that people are potentially being killed because of mental illness. Moving on from that, Royal Pain states that Muni doesn't even have any bathrooms, with Star telling River it's one of the greatest parts of Earth.
What a glorious throne!
This is consistent with the portrayal of Muni as a primitive medieval society, but gets directly contradicted in Season 3 when we see the royal bathroom, which has a solid gold toilet. And 3 episodes later we see that Star has her own bathroom. Now, it's not impossible that those were installed after Season 1, but this seems easier to chalk up to early installment weirdness. Plus, Muni's level of technology isn't even consistent within the first season itself. Other episodes have vending machines and video surveillance drones. In Season 2 and beyond, all notions of Muni being this primitive are gone. Well, I suppose they're socially primitive, but that's not what this segment is about. We have more vending machines, electric guitars, record players, photo booths, etc. All of these could easily be magical in nature like the mirrors, there's really no evidence to say that they aren't. But it's still pretty jarring to see a society that probably couldn't beat the plague suddenly transform into a society that had social media centuries before that. Continuing the theme of weird aspects of Muni, money. Muni definitely has its own currency, like here there's a coin with Comet on it. But for whatever reason, Earth money is perfectly acceptable there. As we all know, whenever the main characters are in a situation that involves money, you can bet that Marco will have the required $650 on him. Let's take a look at some of the places this money's been accepted. The Goblin Dog Truck, the Bounce Lounge, Quest Spy, all understandable since they cater to customers from all dimensions. But the photo booth and the Pie Carnival? Proof that US dollars are legal tender on Muni. Earth shows are regularly watched interdimensionally. Ponyhead watches a Korean drama show in one episode. All in all, this was just part of the process of humans slowly becoming more and more human until the revelation that they actually are humans. I mean, puberty went from being incredibly common to something only magic users undergo. Besides some unrealistic hair and eye colors, non-magical humans are just humans, or at least a human subspecies. I bet that the distinction between the two groups will go away over time now that they're coexisting. Alright, on to the next part.
A picture of us that says Beach Day?
Look closely, Marco. When exactly did we go to that beach?
If you're part of the Star vs. the Forces of Evil fandom, then you know that the 4th season was pretty divisive. Some fans, like me, acknowledge it had some problems, but still enjoy it for what it is. Others do nothing to hide their distaste and contempt for the season, citing its flaws while claiming the show should have ended with the battle for Muni. There's no right side in the scenario, everyone is of course entitled to their own opinion, and both sides make solid arguments. One of the things that both sides acknowledge is the continuity errors, such as the famous Beach Day photo. The photo first appeared in the Season 2 finale, Star Crushed, as nothing more than a photo. There was no reason to believe this scene was anything other than Star reminiscing about a happy memory. But then Butterfly Follies comes along and changes everything. Suddenly the photo comes back and now it's a photo from the future given to her by Father Time, so she'll know things will eventually get better. Once the true meaning of the photo became apparent, Star's actions at the end of Season 2 and much of Season 3 get completely recontextualized. Star seemingly left Earth in Starcrest believing she'd never see Marco again, a sentiment which is repeated when Marco leaves Muni in sense of a hoodie. Then when Marco comes back to Muni in Linkcatcher, Star's mad at him for coming back into her life without warning even though she did the exact same thing to him in the first episode. Luckily, Eclipse is there to continually prove her worth as the most sensible character on the show.
Well, now that he's here, do you want him to stay?
Yeah... No... I don't know.
Let's face it, Eclipse is a much better mom to Star than Moon could ever dream of being. Anyway, if Star knew that she would eventually see Marco again and they would have a really fun day at the beach, there was no reason to say a final goodbye. Plus that means she was rude for no reason. Although I guess it could be considered karma for Marco being rude to everyone on Earth in the previous episode. But maybe there's a legitimate reason for what Star did other than she was rude for the hell of it. Well, the out-of-universe answer is that it's a retcon. What could the in-universe explanation be? Well, in order to answer that question, we need to determine the rules of time travel on the show. Well, going by the only episode to properly depict it, Meteor's Lesson, time travel in Starverses does not create new timelines, which makes sense given Reynaldo's job is to keep order. This is a literal time stream. You can go forward and backward, but you can't branch off to create a new timeline. Multiple timelines are confirmed to exist, but how they exist hasn't been established. Some of these timelines seem very similar to the main one, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they split off from one timeline. These timelines may exist separately from each other, independent of time travel, with Omnitraxis being the only one who's able to access all of them. Well, I guess that ship has sailed. Time itself can be sped up or slowed down or stopped with Father Time's wheel, but that doesn't affect anything in the long run. Moving the wheel of time in different directions doesn't cause time to move in different directions. Anyway, these are the rules of time and time travel, but did you really expect Star to know them? Star may have thought that the beach day photo was from a possible future, and that her actions could easily change it, a literal butterfly effect. If anything, dealing with multiple timelines in math magic enforced this belief. It wasn't until Season 4 that she realized she couldn't change the future. However, there is a much more blatant, and in my opinion, inexcusable continuity error involving photos. It can be found in Lake House Fever, an episode that even the people who like Season 4 don't like. When Tom's family is browsing a photo album, we come across a picture of Star's going away to Earth party. Sounds innocent enough. Until we go back to the very first episode and see that there was no time for such a party to occur. Star left for Earth immediately after she found out she was going there. No waiting, no party, total elapsed time 17 seconds. I don't have an explanation for this. It's a legitimate mistake and a bad episode. Let's just not think about it. Actually, the picture first appeared in the spellbook, so I guess you can blame that.
We have a plethora of foolproof security measures. No dimensional scissors, no magic, no boys.
As I touched upon in a previous video, St. Olga's Reform School for Wayward Princesses is a mysterious place. I mean, we're talking about a place where kings and queens send their unruly daughters to be systematically brainwashed into being proper princesses. Too bad said process leaves the princesses completely emotionless. How did it take so long for a rebellion to happen? I mean, this place has existed for a minimum of 300 years. How did no one decide to investigate it? Yes, princesses were sent there to behave better, but shouldn't people be concerned that they've been reduced to robots? But considering the place was seemingly founded by a robot, I guess this shouldn't be surprising. Though I don't think St. Olga built the place by herself, or even at all. She may have just been made to run the place. So who would build such a place? Whoever it was must have been extremely bureaucratic. They want to maintain a system, want to keep things in a certain place, want royalty to act in a certain way. That's right, I believe the Magic High Commission constructed St. Olga's. While St. Olga's location hasn't been conclusively established, it's definitely not in Muni. The Reform School accepts princesses from all dimensions, and what other interdimensional authority is there? St. Olga clearly has the same monster-hating racist ideologies as the Commission, so it would make sense for them to make her, or at least program her. St. Olga's also has a Tremorphidian crystal which disables all dimensional scissors on the premises. Sounds a lot like something Hekapoo would create, doesn't it? However, just because the MAC may have built St. Olga's, that doesn't mean they're responsible for running it, which they clearly not. As far as we know, their only involvement with St. Olga's after its construction was getting rid of Meteora. Meteora is also wanted by the MHC, supposedly for what she did to the princesses, but we know they want her for another reason. Ironically, if their plan was to use the school to create princesses they can control, then the plan failed miserably. For starters, Moon is the one who threatens to send Star to St. Olga's, not the MHC, which implies that outside of what they did to Meteora, the Commission has no authority to send princesses to St. O's. Also, the one princess/queen that the Commission had complete control over was Festivia, a party animal who's probably as far away from St. Olga's ideals as you can get. Another unanswered question related to Say No's is the fate of the princesses. Meteor leads an assault on the place and is very clearly not above using violence against the princesses. The odds of survival don't seem too high considering Meteor was growing increasingly stronger and Rasticourt was armed with his dimensional chainsaw. Of the dozens of princesses who were in the building at the time, there are 2 known survivors, Ponyhead and Princess Spiderbite. For all we know, everyone else could be dead. That's a pretty grim thought though, so let's assume there are more survivors. The Say No saga really goes to show how big an impact one single decision can have. Ponyhead calling Star turned out to be the catalyst for much of what happens in the second half of the series. That led to this, which led to this, which led to this, which led to this, etc, etc, etc. Also, what is that thing under Star's rug? Is that the result of a cloning spell gone wrong? Let's hope that's the case and that it isn't some sort of eldritch horror trapped in Star's room.
I do know one thing. Never, ever step on it.
What you looking at over there?
Oh, it's, Alphonse's Atlas of the Multiverse?
The Blood Moon Ball episode has what is undoubtedly one of the show's most mysterious moments. The portrait of an old sea captain speaks to Marco, compelling him to go after Star to the eponymous ball.
Blood moon tonight.
It's a really weird moment, but it never gets addressed. That is until Season 3's Sweet Dreams, where Eclipsa talks to the portrait and it actually winks back to her. So what's going on? Who is this captain? The spellbook reveals his identity to be Alphonse the Worthy, one of Solaria's most trusted advisors. It's shown that Alphonse went on important missions during her war against the monsters. Perhaps more importantly, he's also Eclipsa's father. He was never king, Solaria didn't particularly care for marriage, and he was more valuable as a captain than he ever would have been as king anyway. That being said, I'm sure he still had a hand in raising Eclipsa, considering she's pretty affectionate toward the painting. I believe that either Alphonse's spirit resides in the painting, or at least he can use it to communicate with others. He offers guidance to whoever needs it, like compelling Marco to go after Star. It's also shown that he wrote an Atlas of the Multiverse. Considering he looks old on the book's cover just like he does in the portrait, I'm guessing he wrote this after Eclipsa was crystallized. Oftentimes people go on long vacations to escape from a harsh reality, and your daughter being in prison certainly qualifies. But other than taking a vacation, I believe he had a secondary reason for traveling the multiverse. During Skywind's reign, a gravity-related accident caused 16 humans to drift into space and land on a planet which is a bustling world, and that one day they'll return and attack. Assuming Alphonse and Solaria are around the same age, this accident was before they were even born, so Alphonse would be making the journey maybe 60 years after the accident. So it'd be less of a search for the lost humans and instead a search for their descendants. Alas, they were seemingly never found. So where did they wind up? Cause if that planet was Earth, they'll certainly have an opportunity to attack now.
And she became the queen of Muni. So that means your great etc. granny was Piefolk.
The Muberty/butterfly form is a rather nuanced thing. On one hand, it heavily increases one's magical abilities and output, lets one travel between dimensions, and grants flight with stylish wings. On the other hand, if something were to go wrong while in this form, they'll be stuck in it, left traversing the multiverse while constantly seeing multiple dimensions. This is what happened to one of the past queens, Supina. It's basically the situation Star had in the middle of Season 3, but permanent. Moon was also in a similar situation at the end of Tough Love and found her way to the realm of magic. Eventually Star chased after her, the two of them mess around for a while without memories, and then they're sent away. But while Star is sent back to Butterfly Castle, Moon is sent to Pie Island without any memories. While the memory loss is easily attributed to prolonged exposure to the realm of magic, why exactly she was sent to Pie Island isn't as clear.
The magic put Marco in the lint catcher at the Muni Castle, and it put me in a shed with Doop Doop and my mom on Pie Island.
Oh, I'm sure it had a really good reason to do that.
The Pie King claims that Moon must have been sent there because she's a descendant of Fesivia, who is actually Piefolk. Thus, Pie Island can be considered Moon's home. Okay, it sounds plausible, except for the fact that Fesivia is 6 generations before Moon, meaning the amount of Piefolk blood would diminish over time until Moon gets less than 2%. That's not exactly the most solid argument. However, that's just the amount she got from her mother. What about her father? Moon's father is never seen nor referenced on the show, but have no fear, the spellbook is here. The spellbook features and/or mentions many characters who never appeared on the show, one of whom is, you guessed it, Moon's father. Here's what we know about him. His name is Laszlo Marmalade. He's a famous chef who met Comet while she was traveling. They quickly married and had Moon. He and Comet divorced shortly after Moon was born, and he didn't attend Moon's wedding. That's all we know. There are also a couple of things about Laszlo that, while never directly stated, can be inferred. For instance, he almost certainly had blue hair, and the bit about the wedding implies he never saw Moon again after the divorce. So, I believe that Laszlo Marmalade comes from Pie Island. It actually makes a lot of sense. Even if it is a cesspool of crime, Wouldn't it make perfect sense for Pie Island to be one of the places for Comet, a talented chef, to visit? Laszlo Marmalade has a dessert-themed last name, which for all we know could be common for Piefolk. And Piefolk's general propensity for crime likely led to whatever caused the divorce in the first place. Maybe he cheated on her, maybe he was robbing some people, maybe both. Or maybe Moon's conception was a one-night stand gone wrong and the marriage was only temporary to make her a legitimate child. Moon very well may have been born on Pie Island, so if the realm of magic sends people to their home, then it did exactly that. She would be a majority Piefolk. Not a large majority, but still a majority. And since the vast majority of Piefolk have criminal tendencies, that could easily explain this. Oh, and Moon apparently used the pole dance? You know what? Let's not think about that. Speaking of dessert-themed last names, what about Mina Loveberry? She's shown to like sweet foods and definitely knows how to grow berries. In the flashback to when she met Solaria, Mina is seen trying to sell some lightly used rags in a village that is under attack. I don't think she was trying to swindle anyone, but it does remind me of a Piefolk scam. While she doesn't exhibit the typical Piefolk mentality, neither does Fool Duke. Pie Island. It connects all the characters together.
What hides behind the golden fan, the hand does sweetly hold, a trove of cosmic secrets that never will be told.
One character that's often theorized about is Selena the Shy, Star's great-great-grandmother. She's the only queen mentioned by name on the show that isn't related to the overall plot in any way, so there could have been big plans for her that were ultimately shelved. As you've probably already figured out from her title, Selena suffers from extreme shyness, something I can definitely relate to. She never spoke in public, though that part seems to have been written before she became queen, so that may have changed. She didn't want to make eye contact with anyone and as such didn't pay attention to where she was walking. She's well versed in the arts, and is said to have been so beautiful she could disarm monsters with a single glance. That might be a natural demon power, since she is half demon. Her long hair could be hiding pointed ears and horns, her dress could be hiding a tail, and her fan could allow her to speak without anyone seeing fangs. Her parents had a very rocky relationship that ended with her abusive demon father's death, so it's reasonable to guess her shyness is at least partially related to her appearance. Of course, the main reason Selena is theorized about so much is her alleged cosmic secrets. They're briefly mentioned in Into the Wand, and the star clearly wants to know what they are, but we never find out.
Don't be shy. You can tell me.
Why? Well, the real answer is because those secrets never will be told. Alright, let's try to figure out what these secrets actually are. Star points out that there weren't as many secrets as she thought there'd be, but consider this. If Selena wrote them down, then they wouldn't be secrets anymore, would they? The most obvious secret is the truth about Vesivia and Meteora. Considering how easy it was for Moon and Eclipse to find evidence, I don't think finding out this secret would be too difficult. Once Selena found this out, she would have realized that anyone can use magic. The royal family are just the only ones with access to it. Her magic-esque potions and charms may be a result of that, a way for common people to reap some of the benefits of magic. There's nothing to say that they were only written in the spellbook. The recipes could have been distributed throughout the kingdom. Some fans have toyed with the idea that Selena is not just Star's ancestor, but Marco's as well. They both have crescent cheek marks, though it's worth noting that toffee skulls prove repeating cheek marks isn't a one-time thing. Selena's cheek marks aren't 100% consistent. On her card, they both face the same direction, while on one of Estrella's drawings and on the show itself, they face each other. 2 out of 3 wins, so they face each other, and thus her cheek marks are identical to Marco's other than color. Their wands also look similar. They're not identical, but compared to some of the other wands, the resemblance is striking. Of course, we haven't seen Selena's wand not blocked by the fans, as that'll cause painful shyness. The most prominent potential connection comes from her daughter, Estrella. Estrella has a darker skin tone than the rest of the queens, which Comet would inherit to some extent. Her name is Spanish in origin, and her father's identity is never established. She didn't draw him, so she may have never met him. Muni knew about Earth during the reign of Selena's mother, Reina, who specifically mentions Chihuahuas, which are native to Mexico, just like the Diaz family. Selena could have traveled to Earth, Mexico specifically, met one Senor Diaz, and had 2 children with him, Estrella, who she took with her back to Muni, and Marco's ancestor, who stayed on Earth. While most queens in the spellbook mention their kings, there's no reference to Selena being married. She has a ring, but on her index finger, which according to a little research is commonly used to represent authority, and has historically been favored by kings and queens. So I believe that's a queen ring, not a wedding ring. As plausible as this theory is, I don't want it to be true. If it is, then Star and Marco would be third cousins. They'd be far enough apart from each other that inbreeding isn't much of an issue, but I feel like it might mess up their relationship if they find out. Although I don't want it to be true, I can't deny the possibility that it is. Selena may have been watching over her great-great-grandchildren, seeing them come together to fight the forces of evil. You know, in between whatever it is the queens do at the grandma farm. This could have been part of a plan to have 2 heirs. One who's familiar with Muni, and one who's more level-headed and is able to recognize the fundamental errors in Muni society, so together they can make the multiverse a better place. But of course, that's just a theory. Hey everyone, thanks for watching this video. As always, feel free to subscribe and leave comments about your own theories. I love reading your theories, they're really cool. Until next time, thanks for watching.